I've been watching the Occupy Wall Street down in New York because I'm a programmer and because they're saying we're designing something that's never been seen before and they're designing new systems. I was observing the conversation of what systems they were making. Apparently, there were secret meetings. They didn't want me there. They've definitely got leaders. You definitely do not have a say, and if you start pointing out any wrong directions, they kick you out. So I thought I'd go to Occupy Calgary because that's where my hell originated from. So I'm going to explain some things to people that are down in Calgary and see what exactly you're up against. Most of Alberta is friggin' wealthy, oil field. My ex worked in the oil field, so I know damn well all of the people that he worked with and all of their conversations about how to get out of paying their income tax. My ex didn't pay his income tax, and that's kind of the norm with everybody that's working in the oil field, is how to get out of paying your income tax. So, while you're in a really, really wealthy province, you're up against everybody that's working in the oil field is doing every single thing wrong, and you think that they're going to get out and protest, especially when they're the ones making money right now while the global collapse is going on. You're not going to be able to do that because everything that's wrong is in Calgary. So it's like you're protesting what? So I'm going to share some stories that I went through. First of all, I had gone through some counseling because it was a very abusive situation. They all told me I had rights, that I should leave abuse. I am here to tell anybody that anybody that's counseling women that are being abused, you are being lied to by all of these nonprofits, by women's shelters, by the justice system, by your counselors. Everybody is lying to you. Even in the media, they're saying, oh, there's something wrong, women don't want to leave abuse. Well, let me tell you, if you are living in abuse, trust, if you leave and there's no system there to protect you, they tell you they're there, but they're not there. Which means your abuse is going to multiply by 1,000. If you think life was bad when you're there with the abuser, trust without a doubt, as soon as you leave, the abuse is going to increase massively. And there won't be one person. That's when society will start labeling you as the problem, because you're going to be so stressed. You're going to be looking crazy, screaming for help. And the way society, and because you live in poverty, because that's what abusers do, all of the emotional stress, every single thing that a victim needs, it's normal human behavior that if it happened to you, you would look exactly like that. But society looks at you as being the problem. They look at, well, no wonder you're being abused, look at you. And it's like, no, the way I am right now is because of the abuse. I'm trying to scream for help, and because I'm a little angry because I'm looking for help, you think that I'm the problem. So the way we view victims, I've also seen Calgary as the largest number of homelessness I've ever seen in my life is in Calgary. And the labeling that's going on. I mean, I personally would like to know, do you have all of those homeless people, as Russell Simmons says, the undesirables? Are you allowing them to participate in this? Because they are the victims of everything that's wrong in Calgary. And yet you're going to label them to be, undesirable. They are victims of torture that nobody wants to pay attention to, nobody wants to understand. They are on drugs, they are drinking alcohol, but hell, let's face it, if you went through torture and all of society blamed you for every social problem, you'd have a drink too, because it's a little painful. Not to mention it's pretty damn cold in Calgary, so alcohol tends to make you feel a little warm. I also found it extremely offensive that if I went into any store and there was some homeless guy trying to get the smallest amount of heat, these store owners would apologize to me, the consumer, for having to walk past them. And I'm sorry, I'd rather walk past some homeless people able to get a little bit of heat than to hear a store owner have to apologize. I've seen so much greed and evilness in Calgary. I can no longer live there. I'm hypersensitive, and I will lose my mind if I even walked in that province of Alberta. There's such a high level of corruption in there. So anyways, what happened to me is I had seen counselors. They all told me I had rights. So I left. The abuse definitely increased, and I found out there was no help. There are women's shelters don't help you. They just give you 30 days. You know, you can breathe, but there's no breathing, because it's like, well, where are you going to live? How are you going to support your kids? How are you going to stop the abuse? The police won't stop them. They work for the abusers. The churches work for the abusers. The nonprofits work for abusers. Legal aid works for the abusers. Every single system that's supposed to and designed to help victims, newsflash, they work for the abuser. Now, my story involved, I left when I was at my worst. When you can't take it anymore, you know, then that's when you leave. So basically the abuse escalates while you are at your absolute lowest point in your life. So I had 4 kids to support. I had an ex-husband that did not want to pay his child support. And I was a stay-at-home mother for 20 years, and I was 40 years old. So I decided to go in and take a programming course. And it was a 12-month self-directed course. There's where I had to fight society again, because the school didn't want me to get an education because they said I was too stressed. So 1 month of my education was completely lost trying to fight for the right to have an education. I ended up graduating with an 89%, so a lot they knew. And while I was in there, my ex had taken me to court 24/7 trying to get out of his child support. So trying to wrap my brain around, you know, a programming course, raising 4 children who are going through friggin' hell, which my ex was encouraging them to be physically abusive. I had court to try and figure out, which there is no legal aid. Legal aid works for abusers. Every single time I used a legal aid lawyer, they all did everything to support the abuse. They refused to show up. They refused to read files. They refused to present evidence that's relevant in court. In my experience, because the abuse was getting so bad, I had to leave. So I moved to Ontario, where my ex decided to go to court without me, where he was getting child support orders where I owe him child support for the kids that live with me. And that took over 4 years to be able to present evidence without any lawyer. No lawyer would ever represent me. So I had to figure out that while after I went through school, I was working minimum wage. So I was like, some days were 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of this hell has landed me on a disability. So I'm now on welfare, where society will label us as being stupid and dysfunctional and lazy, when actually it's society that's stupid, lazy, and dysfunctional, because sure looks like I'm not that dumb, and it sure looks like I'm not that lazy. So it must be society that every label they put on me is actually what society is guilty of. So in Calgary, that's what you're faced with, is, are you ready to face your own freaking insanity? My ex worked in the oil field, so Alberta is mostly made up of oil field workers. I've seen all of my ex's friends, and I've seen what they talk about. They all talk about how to get out of paying their income tax. I looked after the family finances, filing income tax, and the last year that I was with him, he refused to give me any papers. Now, we had a corporation that if he did contract work, he could file his income tax through there. If he was an employee, he had to file as an employee. The year that I was leaving, he not giving me his papers, he ended up filing himself in this corporation, found out he wasn't a contractor that year, he was actually an employee. But he filed as a corporation, drew out a $30,000 income so he could get his income tax that said he only made $30,000. And the whole world thinks he's living in poverty making $30,000 when the man actually earned well over $100,000 that he didn't report. He filed off ownership of that corporation, leaving all of that debt. All of the income tax was now in my name. He then quit his oil field job went into a low-paying landscaping job so he can get out of paying his child support, and he claimed bankruptcy. So now I'm responsible for all his friggin' income tax and all of the corporate bills and everything. I was a stay-at-home mother for 20 years. I'm now forced to financially support all my children, and now that he claimed bankruptcy, all the family debt is now put in my name. So now I've got all of these bill collectors harassing me constantly 24/7. I tell them what's going on. They say, oh, that's not true. I'm sure you've got enough money to pay your bills. And it's like, there's no talking to bill collectors, and they will put you through friggin' hell. Oh, it's such a story. He had eventually, when I was in Ontario, went to court without serving me. He lied about where the children live and lied about what his income was. And I had right away instantly filed to appeal that, but legal aid says we're not going to fund this because it's impossible to prove a lie in court. I know, I'm a lawyer. So legal aid, that's legal aid's, they weren't there for me. So I had to do it on myself. It took me 4 years to finally get into a court. No legal aid would ever touch my case with a 10-foot pole. So I had to do the work myself while I'm living through hell, while I had to work and deal with children that my ex was encouraging them to be physically violent towards me. He would make up stories, promise them the world, and then say, oh, your mother doesn't want me to do this for you. So they would get off the phone and be physically violent towards me because they'd think that I was preventing them from doing something, which wasn't true. If they could get anything, it was like, here, good, get as much as you possibly can, you deserve a great life. I had gone and filed papers at a court. The court said, oh, you're in the wrong court, you got to go down the street. So I had to wait another months and months and months, file there. They told me, you're filed in the wrong courthouse, you got to go back where you came from. So that took well over a year to do that. Then I get in front of a judge. I present my evidence. This guy's saying kids live with him with no evidence. I didn't even know what he presented in court. I wasn't entitled to anything. So I could only assume what he said. So I presented evidence that how could he say the kids live there because here's all their school records and everything. Here's his income. I have his pay stubs. I have everything. So here is the information that I'm dealing with. So I got a court order that what do you call it? It had to be confirmed in Alberta because I went through the court system in Ontario that had to be confirmed in Alberta. But the judge told me that I had to go to Alberta because of the level of lies that were being told. So I end up using my rent money to fly to Calgary thinking that there would be justice, and only to find out a judge didn't even want to look at the case. He was going to put it off for 3 months. And it's like, why? All you had to do is look at his evidence, see there was none, and then look at my evidence and see that there was some. This man was claiming that he was in poverty, and yet he had a house that was worth well over $300,000. I brought the land title in, but the first judge postponed it for 3 months. Then I had to go again. I had to, because I'm homeless now. I'm now living in a women's shelter, trying to get into court, and then the judge says that he wasn't going to deal with the court again, so he put it off for another 3 months. And then when it got to the next judge, it says, oh, it took you too long, we're not even going to look at it. So they did look at something past that judgment that I was fighting. And my own lawyer refused to give the courts the $300,000 land title that was in his name. My own lawyer refused to show the judge because he was asked for full disclosure. We've seen some bank accounts that had money coming in and out of some other bank account that it's like, well, if we got full disclosure, we should see all of those others. But my lawyer didn't even, she asked about it. My ex says, that's none of your business. And so she bought it and said, okay, it's none of my business. And yet child support was supposed to be based on his income, but my lawyer didn't even want to. The Calgary Police Department is totally working for abusers. There is so much abuse going on from your churches, your nonprofits, your food banks, your women's shelters. Every single aspect of society in Alberta is corrupt. So if you're going to have a protest, who the hell's going to show up? All the people that are doing something wrong want to do something right now? I'm confused. Peace out.